Good evening and thank you for joining us. The backlash against Mayor Bill Morrow continues to grow in the aftermath of his town hall meeting last week. A longtime member of the city's anti-racism committee has resigned after accusing the mayor of not taking the issue seriously, and Indigenous leaders are calling for Morrow and another member of the Police Services Board to step down. Alana Pickrell has the details.
Fort William First Nation Chief Peter Collins has called on the mayor to give up his seat on the Police Services Board for failing to acknowledge the seriousness of systemic racism. Collins' request follows Bill Morrow's first ever town hall meeting last week that has received quite a bit of negative attention. During the town hall, Morrow stated that Thunder Bay is no different than any other city, and he said the constant national headlines about racism here drive him insane. Collins believes there is an inherent conflict of interest and the mayor needs to be removed from the board.
We need to recognize the issues at hand. And if you're not going to recognize them, we're not going to be able to repair them. And I think sitting at the police board, not recognizing the issues and the recommendations going forward is not a good way to think. He has a job to do. And that job is to rectify the problems and deal with them head on. Don't shove them under the rug. And that's what he's trying to do.
Morrow's town hall comments have also prompted the resignation of longtime anti-racism committee member Vincent Simon. He says the mayor's attitude towards the racism problem forced him to quit. Morrow says he was disappointed by Simon's decision and is hoping he will reconsider. And he says that Collins' letter caught him off guard. But as of now, the mayor has no plans on giving up his spot on the police board.
We all completely in this community understand that racism exists here. That's never been the question. But I think what people are trying to communicate is that perhaps sometimes they're not hearing that message from me in a clear enough way. But I'm going to sit down with the chief and we will have a broader discussion about what's contained in his letter and his specific request. And I won't make any more comment on it than that until I've had a chance to talk to him.
Meanwhile, the newest member of the police board, John Cyr, is also coming under fire. A letter to the editor from 2017 recently came to light where Cyr states that Senator Lynn Bayak's comments about the good deeds done at residential schools were balanced and thoughtful. Nan Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler is now demanding Cyr's resignation. He says it's unacceptable and insulting to have a person who has expressed support for the suspended senator to be a part of the police board. But Reitberger has a different opinion.
It's my hope that people will just ignore it because that's what I feel needs to happen. We need to ignore Ms. Bayak. So I'm not commenting on it. I am just here to say that I stand by my comments of Tuesday at the board meeting, and I consider John to be an ally.
Cyr insists his letter was not supporting Bayak and calls some of her more recent actions to be unfortunate and inappropriate. Alana Pickrell, TVT News.
60 firefighters and a 19-person incident management team from northwestern Ontario are heading to northern Alberta to join the frontline effort to fight a massive blaze in that province. The wildfire has already forced 5,000 people from their homes and has burned through an area of forest larger than the city of Calgary. Earlier today, a crew from each district in this region piled into trucks on their way to Dryden. From there, they fly to Alberta tomorrow morning for a 14 to 19-day tour of duty. M&R Fire Management Supervisor Gary Harland is part of the team heading west. He says they count on other provinces during busy forest fire seasons here, so sending crews to Alberta is simply the right thing to do.
No jurisdiction has enough firefighters, fire equipment to handle worst case scenarios. So last year when we were busy, firefighters from several provinces came to help us. So it's important that we carry on that relationship and support them when we're wet here. And Ontario, you know, they're flooding in the east, and the south half of the northwest region is low to moderate, low hazard right now with the rain. The north has a moderate to hazard, but with the area of the undertaking, the area that we're worried about being a bit reduced, we can afford to support them.
Harlan says if conditions change here at home, then the crews will have to leave Alberta earlier than expected and come back to manage fires in this region. Another candidate has stepped forward in the race for the federal Liberal nomination in Thunder Bay Rainy River. Dr. Marcus Pawlowski was born and raised in the city and has been an emergency room physician at Thunder Bay Regional since 2004. Pawlowski also holds a law degree from Harvard University with a master's in public health. He says he decided to enter the political arena to help shape policy that can help people in need.
In society, who makes the rules in society? Well, it's the courts and the legislature, and so it's politicians and lawyers. And so a long time ago, years ago, I decided to go through law school, and since I've been and got a couple of other degrees, I think I've deliberately put myself in the position where I thought I could perhaps address these issues at that higher level.
Pawlowski is the fourth person to publicly enter the race for the Liberal nomination. The others are City Councillor Shelby Chung, former Green Party candidate Christy Radbourne, and former Northern Ontario candidate David Bruno. Liberal Riding Association President Murray Monroe says there are two other candidates in the running as well, but he can't yet reveal who they are. He says they're hoping to hold a nomination meeting to select a candidate by the middle of June. 10 former Ontario health ministers representing 3 political parties are urging the province to reverse cuts to public health funding. The Progressive Conservative government says it's lowering its share of public health spending, meaning municipalities will have to contribute millions more than anticipated. Colin DeMello has more.
The warnings over provincial cuts to public health agencies are mounting. Today, Health Minister Christine Elliott received a letter from 10 former health ministers, Liberals, NDP, and even Conservatives, pleading with her to reverse the cuts.
We're asking her to stop, first of all, the retroactive financial cuts and to find a way forward with full, meaningful consultation that doesn't risk our public health system.
The Ford government's April budget includes plans to download costs and amalgamate public health agencies. 35 agencies across the province will be merged into 10 regional public health agencies. While Toronto Public Health will remain as a standalone unit, it will eventually have to share 50% of the costs with the province. Former health ministers say public health agencies are instrumental in preventing things like SARS or Walkerton.
Public health has been the backbone of preventing disease, both acute infectious disease, chronic disease.
But current Health Minister Christine Elliott is dismissing claims that public health will be at risk.
Absolutely not. We're going to continue to make sure that those essential protections stay in place. I think there has been a lot of fear-mongering and incorrect information about the changes that are being made in the public health care system.
Elliott says she wants agencies to save money by focusing on essential services, vaccinations, and breakfast programs.
What do you consider non-essential?
Some of the programs, like looking at the impact of energy drinks, some of those studies could be done provincially.
Elliott says the province is pressing ahead with a plan that she says will eventually save the government $200 million. Colin DeMello, CTV News.
A bioethics study about providing care to mothers who use drugs or alcohol is being discussed in Thunder Bay. Research coordinators held a pair of panel discussions this week to explore the findings of a local study. Tyler Kelleher explains.
Dialogue on a sensitive topic swirled within the confines of the regional hospital. The Mothers' Voices Project is an ethics of care approach toward finding better avenues of support for pregnant and parenting mothers involved in alcohol and opioid use. What separates this project from others is an in-depth look at the mother's perspective. Thunder Bay Regional and Lakehead University collaborated with over 24 local organizations over the span of a 2-year case study. The project revolved around nearly 20 mothers, either formerly or currently living with substance involvement. The researchers said that dialogue between the mothers consisted of 4 separate levels of health care.
The first one was meeting the individual's needs. The second one was the way that healthcare providers approach patients and the relationship between them. The third level was really looking at support networks and relationships that that individual mom might have or may not have. And the fourth level were structural barriers that healthcare providers and organizations can be aware of.
Children will always do better with their mothers, and we need to find a way where we can support women mothers to care for their children in the best way that they want to.
Officials believe when it comes to making healthcare changes, it's best to collect firsthand experiences in order to adapt and improve social services, medical care, and counseling. They say cases like these are a step in the right direction. Tyler Kelleher, TBT News.
More than 60 years ago, an American bomber plane went down in the forest near Thunder Bay, and an air of mystery continues to surround the crash. One city resident who's been researching the topic for years recently visited the remote crash site. He's now trying to honor the memory of 3 men who lost their lives that day back in 1956. Corey Nordstrom has that story.
There's a lot of secrecy and mystery surrounding this crash.
63 years ago, during the Cold War, a U.S. Air Force B-47 bomber on a show-of-force mission went down somewhere in the Black Sturgeon area. 3 of the 4 crew members died in the crash. The American government had apparently set a wide perimeter around the crash site, which quickly filled with water and is now a pond.
It's 30 feet of muskeg deep. Apparently the majority of the plane apparently went under the muskeg and is buried.
Rob Farrow spent years trying to find the remote crash site, which involved an hour-and-a-half drive and a 2-kilometer hike. He now wants to leave something there to remember the deceased airmen, besides the scraps of metal on the ground.
I'd like to get some kind of little plaque made up, just something to mount to one of the trees here, just to mark this, because this is a grave site, and I don't see any markers or plaques or anything around here. It'll basically be the final mission or final flight of the 3 U.S. Air Force men. Their names will be on it.
John Curry made headlines in 1975 for finding the ejection seat of the only living crew member, Colonel Robert Slane. While the U.S. military deny it and research suggests their truth, Curry says at the time, his father and many others believed the bomber was carrying a nuclear weapon.
Told him what I found, and he come over and he said, that's from a jet that crashed in 55 or 56, and he says, that's pretty significant because that jet was carrying an atomic bomb. And so the story started from there.
The seat now resides at Curry's camp. He says it serves as a conversation piece.
I guess it just keeps the story alive of the tragedy that happened.
Farrow hopes the creation of a plaque doesn't prompt others to search for the crash site, but if it does, he wants them to make sure they do not disturb the area, as it is also a grave site. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Lake Superior has reached a new high water mark for the month of May, beating any recorded measurement since officials began keeping track in 1918. The International Lake Superior Board of Control says the high water level could have a negative impact on shoreline property owners. The Big Lake currently sits at 183.8 meters above sea level. That's 6 centimeters higher than any other May on record. This, along with a large storm system passing through, could greatly increase shoreline erosion and flooding, according to experts. The water levels are even approaching the all-time high for any month recorded in October of 1985. Water levels will continue to rise throughout the coming months as they tend to peak in late summer or early fall. Well, this year's Pride celebration in Thunder Bay is shaping up to be the biggest in the city's history. The Thunder Pride Association unveiled its schedule today, as well as a new partnership with all 3 local school boards. This year's Thunder Pride will feature nearly 20 events over the course of 16 days. Highlights include a flag raising at City Hall on June 5th, a Two-Spirit smudge and drum ceremony on Mount McKay, and of course the Thunder Pride Parade. Celebrations conclude with a 2-day block party in the Bay and Algoma district. Organizers expect a record turnout, given all of the new events and the expanded schedule.
We reinvented ourselves and we're offering a bigger and better festival, and that's a testament to the growth of this community and our business community and our city to allow for something like this.
The Pride flag will be flown at the 3 local school board offices throughout the month of June, and Veltri hopes next year the flag will fly at all local schools.
Well, Tyler, sort of spinning out today.